And we are live. Good morning everyone. My name is Ed Stafford and welcome to our 8th lesson of forest skills, which today is all about the bow drill. This is a lesson which is a little bit different to everyone else's, to all the other lessons that we've done so far, in the fact that it's not something that you'll be able to partake in, I don't think, if you're watching it indoors anyway, while the lesson is going on. Reason being, one, is that it's quite a complicated setup to actually make. We're doing this lesson out of a number of requests last week to go into more depth on the bow drill, but you're not actually physically going to be able to make a kit like this. But what it will do is equip you with the knowledge, and obviously this will be saved onto YouTube for eternity, but it will equip you with the knowledge, hopefully, to be able to go and make one of these kits this week, and fingers crossed, by this time next week, you'll have had a bit of time to practice, review the video, and fingers crossed you'll have been able to get a fire going just using 2 bits of wood. That sounds a bit unrealistic, doesn't it? Surely making fire by friction, rubbing 2 sticks together to get a fire, is unachievable for the normal everyday person. It's a mystical thing, almost. It's not, it really isn't. I'm going to let you into a massive secret. When I went on to Olarua, which was the island that I went on for 60 days, and that program got commissioned, and I'd said to Discovery Channel, I'm going to live on this island with nothing to help me survive, not even a knife. They went, brilliant, we love it, commissioned it, and I then said, right, it's about time to learn how to do the bow drill, really, isn't it? And I'd spent my entire career, my military career, using a lighter. I walked the Amazon with a number of lighters in my pocket, and that's how most people light fires. It's with matches or with a lighter. And so the bow drill is a very advanced skill, and yet it is utterly enabling. I used to take the mickey out of people who sat in front of the fire, using a metal tray, watching Star Trek, getting ember after ember after ember, and used to think they were a bit sort of bushcraft geeks, I suppose, really. But having learnt these skills, not just the bow drill, but the hand drill and the bamboo fire saw and multiple other techniques as well of lighting fire, it's so freeing. It literally means you can go out into the woods without your lighter, without your matches, or they can get wet, or you can lose them, and you've still got the ability to look after yourself. And I think that's what all of these lessons are about. It's about not being reliant on kit that might let you down, and having the inherent knowledge and confidence to be able to do these things, to make yourself comfortable, to cook food, to boil water, to provide you with warmth and light at night without a lighter or some matches. So I think it's really important. Actually, I've gone full circle from thinking it was a bushcraft geeky thing to realizing that it's one of those skills that, certainly as a dad, how amazing is it to be able to pass these skills on to our children, and as a mum, obviously, to be able to pass these skills on to our sons and daughters, rather than go out into the woods and just sort of rather embarrassingly say, well, yeah, you can do this, but I'm not very good at it. You know, equip yourself with these skills. And certainly I'm finding, as Ran is just beginning to get to the age where you can introduce him to things like this, he'll be 4 soon. It's just a nice thing to have in the armoury, you know, it's a nice skill to have. Let's do a few shout outs. We've got a few regulars here. Preacher Bear from Cornwall is again tuning in. Hi to Tom and Colette there. Weight Loss Panda again. Her and Jim are now super excited for today's lesson. Thank you guys for tuning in again, our ultimate regulars. Morning, Theo from Newark again. Again, thanks for tuning in again, mate. Ready and excited. Hello from Woodland Project Year 9s. Hi guys, thank you for tuning in. Hope everything is okay. Yes, it is, it's great. Vu Bleu says, Bleu says hi. Hello, Vu Bleu. Hi, yeah, greetings from a rainy and windy Sweden. Looking forward to today's lesson. That's in Halmstad. Hello, who's that? Gunlagor? Mate, I'm really sorry if I pronounce your name wrong. I do apologise. Hi, Ed from the Forest School, from Harvey Marshall. Greetings from Brighton, from Gary. Esther says, lighting fires. Michael says, hi, hello, and everyone here again from the Netherlands. So a couple of people tuning in from the Netherlands, that's really lovely. Big good morning, Ed, from Charlie and his daddy Mark. Joanne Cadman says, morning, Ed, from Corrie and Hayden. We finished all our schoolwork and relaxing and watching you, Ed. Love these sessions. Thank you, guys. Much appreciated. Matthew and Christina, good morning. We've got Japan again. Oh, wait, hold on, I've just lost it. Greetings from Mutsumi in Japan. I've just seen as well, we've got somebody in, oh my God, we've got so many messages coming in. Leeds, Germany, Japan, Gambia. This is extraordinary. I always absolutely I'm humbled by the fact that there's people tuning in all around the world to watch these lessons. It's extraordinary. If you're new to this, my name is Ed Stafford. I make survival programs for Discovery Channel mainly, a little bit of documentary stuff for Channel 4 in the UK. I 10 years ago did an expedition to walk the length of the Amazon. So I was ex-military, and I suppose my introduction to bushcraft, to all these forest skills, has been very much experiential. I've gone out there, I've struggled for ages to do something, and then eventually I've learnt a way that works for me. So it's not the handbook. I've never been on a bushcraft course. I've never been instructed to actually do these things. And so what you might find in this lesson is that it's not as conventional, it's not as by the handbook as maybe potentially other people, but it is a safe method of making a bow drill set that you should be able to fall back on and should stand you in good stead. So, without further ado, hi from the flooded Tewkesbury. Crikey, yeah, the weather has been horrendous, hasn't it, the last couple of days in the UK? Lots of flooding, hope everyone is okay. Josh in Cheshire. Phil, Ruben and Josh in Cheshire, big thanks for the fab sessions. Hi from Wiltshire. Okay, we've got a good amount of people in, and let's start with this session. Fire by friction. There's obviously other methods of fire by friction. I've got a hand drill set here. Hand drill is a little bit harder to learn, so we're not going to start on that. But again, if you are interested in things like the hand drill, then make your comments known on the comments, and potentially this is one we can also get to, because again, not unachievable. But the difference between a hand drill and the bow drill for me is that this has got the mechanical advantage. You have a bow. So I'm going to go through all the different components that you're going to have to collect. If you want a more comprehensive lesson, then I do have that on the online bushcraft website, but this is not about selling those lessons. This is trying to impart as much information as I can in this half hour, 40 minutes that I've got with you. Again, so that my legs don't go dead, I'm going to do this. The beauty of having a remote microphone. Thank you to everyone who's helped me try and work out my remote microphone, but it's now working, so I don't have to be so close to the camera. The first thing you're going to need is a bow. Now, you can overcomplicate this. It can look like a classic sort of D shape like this, and it can look a lot straighter. And often I find that a straighter bow works much better actually, because it's got less flex in it. And what you do want to avoid is having lots of flex in your bow. It doesn't really matter whether it's live wood or dead wood. The most important thing is that it doesn't have much flex. So obviously, if it is really dried out, obviously a dry bow will inherently probably have less flex than a green one, but you can definitely do it with green wood. The string, I've got two examples here. This one is leather. It's a rather posh bow, which is made of a leather cord. This one is just paracord. You can also use your laces. If you're out in the field and you've got hiking boots on, then your laces are absolutely fine. You can also obviously use natural cordage like nettles and stuff like that. However, I would say that that's a lot harder. And often with natural materials, you've got about 2 or 3 runs, 2 or 3 attempts at it, and your cordage will break because they're not as strong as synthetic materials, or often aren't if you've made them on the hoof in the field anyway. So that is very achievable. In order to get the string onto the end of here, I've just made little notches in the end, but this is a half-hour lesson into the bow drill, and however you attach it on, as long as it's not slipping, it will work. Should I demonstrate the notch? No, I mean, I won't. Literally, there's a timber hitch at one end, but that could be a round turn and 2 half hitches like I demonstrated on Wednesday, and at the other end there's a round turn and 2 half hitches. When we come to actually having a play with this in a second, I'll demonstrate how to work out how tight to make this cordage. The other bits are the hearth board, this bit's called, and this goes on the floor, and then the drill. Now the drill sits in the hearth board and spins back and forth, and it's the bow that spins it in place. So this goes back and forth in place, and it heats up to such a temperature that little fragments of wood come off and they build up in an ember notch, and I will explain that now. And then they basically once you've got enough and they reach a certain temperature, they coalesce. So they all come together and form this big mass, which is called an ember, and it's glowing. And you can then transfer that into your Tinder bundle, which is lots of fine dry material. In this case, we've got some hay. And so you can use dry grass, you can use bark, anything that's super fine and super dry. That's the other really important thing about that. And you can actually hear this, if I put it up next to it's crunchy. And that's a really nice sign. If it's not making much noise, then it might be a little bit wet. Let's come a little bit closer and just explain the hearth board. Because the complicated thing about making this set, I think it's probably safe to say, is the hearth board and the drill. The drill, what you're first of all, I'd say, in terms of collecting these materials, you would ideally want to make both the hardboard and the drill out of the same wood. Not just the same wood, but actually the same branch off the same tree. Now in the UK, often I use sycamore. I find that works really well for me. There's lots of other woods that you can use. You can use ivy. But what I would say is that if you don't know your trees, if you don't know your woods, and often when I'm abroad, going all around the world doing these things, and often I haven't got a clue what the species of tree is, to find the right sort of dead wood, and obviously green wood is live, dead wood is dead, to find the right sort of wood and to test the properties, if you try and leave an indentation with your thumbnail into the wood, and you can do that and it just leaves a little mark, then that is a nice density of wood. If when you're trying to do that, loads of wood comes away and it just flakes away and it's really loose, then that's too dead, it's too punky as we call it, and you want to throw that bit of wood away. That's too rotten. And equally, if you can't get a fingernail in at all, and some hardwoods like oak, you might find it's difficult, they're just too hard, then you don't want to use that either, because you'll just polish, each bit of wood will just polish each other. It won't have enough grind, it won't be able to make the powder in order to get you your ember. So sycamore in the UK, if you can recognise sycamore, then that's great. If you can't, like, literally just go online, type in sycamore, you'll see all the leaves, you'll see all the different seed pods and stuff like that, so you'll be able to work out what a sycamore is. And the bark as well. This time of year, often the only thing you can really use to identify it is the bark, because obviously all the leaves have fallen off the trees. So this is a little bit complicated. This lesson is gonna be, the majority of it, it's 1:15 now, I'm halfway through it. The majority of it is gonna be technique, because for those of you who've got a bow drill set and that you haven't managed to get it working, you think it's mystical, but you don't know why. I think a lot of times the difference is in actually getting the technique right rather than the kit not being good. But I do have to demonstrate or just explain a couple of things first. To get the spindle sitting correctly in the hearth board, you need to do a couple of things. So first of all, your spindle needs to be ideally the length of between your thumb and your little finger when it's out like that. Okay, you can see how this one is a little bit of an old spindle, and so I'm a couple of inches short. It doesn't matter massively, but don't make it this short to start with, because it will wear down. So try and make it the length between your little finger and your thumb. And if you're thinking that's a bit over the top and overly prescriptive, the reason for it is actually very, very valid. As I will show you, the position that you're going to end up in is like a triangle. I've got 1, 2, 3 points, my 2 feet and my knee, and that's so that I can have a lot of balance and I can come forward and put more weight on my front leg. But my left arm is going to be wrapped around my front leg, and if you look at the amount of surface area that's connected to my front leg, there's the base of my thumb to my wrist, to my forearm, to my elbow, and even part of my bicep is connected. You think how stable that now is, because it's all braced to my front leg, and look how high my hand is at that point. It is a thumb to a little finger height. So that's the reason that this has to be that sort of length. And obviously you can just let your hand slip a little bit down the leg if you've got a little stumpy like me. Okay, then the way you carve this, and again, we have been using knives in these sessions. If you are under the age of 14 and you are not used to using a knife, then please get adult supervision, utterly essential. Is you want to have a sharper end and a blunter end. And the reason for that is that at the top, you don't want to generate friction. You want to have as small a surface area as possible, because this end is not going to be the one that you want to create powder from. This end you want the least friction possible. The bottom end is going to be the one that does the grinding onto the hearth board, and so you want as much air as possible. So that bottom end, we're going to put a very, very shallow tip into it. And this one I've already made, and so I don't really want to destroy it, but I'll just destroy another one for the purposes of, this is far too old to use, so I'll destroy this one. Now ideally the top point is 3 fingers deep, okay? So that's how much angle you want to put. And if we go off to the side of our body and we're holding in a punch grip like this, and we're making a sharp point onto the top. And then, so that it's not like a pencil, which as you well know, if it's too sharp, it just snaps, doesn't it? You can't make it too sharp. You can put a secondary bevel, which is just slightly blunt off the very tip, like that. But it is a much sharper end than the bottom end. But the bottom does need a little spike on it. Initially, a much blunter spike, so that it can sit in a little depression on the hearth board. And when it sits in the little depression, we're going to do what's called seating the drill, okay? And I will show you that now. To seat the drill, to start spinning that in place on the hearth board, you need to have a little indentation on your hearth board for that little tip at the bottom to sit in, okay? Otherwise it will just scoot off and fly off in different directions. The safe way of doing this, if you hold your knife, and you'd normally have a punch grip where your knife is, the blade is facing away from you, you're going to reverse that, and then you're going to very safely, and you can actually hold the blade of the knife, you're going to move the wood and then the knife like this. So you've got the wood in place, and you're just going to move the knife, and you can see how this is way away from my body, from the danger zone here. This is where all my arteries are that I definitely don't want to have the knife anywhere near, but it's a controlled manner. It's on the floor, and you're making a little depression. So I'm cutting away from myself, spinning the wood round, cutting away from myself until I've got a little depression that will take my drill. What you don't want to be doing, I'm just stressing in advance, is doing this up in your hand, okay? Because if you slip with a knife, you'll go into your hand, and we don't want that. Okay, so you would then burn this in. I'm not going to go into the full burning this in at the moment, because there is just limited time in this lesson. I'm going to go straight into the actual, lesson of using a burnt in notch. But essentially, I will talk you through it. Once you've span this in place, you will char a circle into the hearth board. And that black circle is super important. That black circle means that the drill is now seated. You then want to take the center of that circle and cut out a pie slice. And if I hold this close up to the camera, you can see, so you've got your black circle there, and then you've got what looks like a Trivial Pursuit pie slice cut out the bottom, and that is the ember notch. That is what the dust is going to build up in, and that needs to be 1/8 of a circle. And it's quite important that it's that sort of diameter. If it's too big, the dust will be a little bit too spread out. If it's too tight, you might find that the dust just ends up, you end up losing it around the rim and over the back. So it does need to be 1/8 of a circle. And you might think, how on earth am I going to measure 1/8 of a circle? You can just make little marks with your knife. So you can cut it into quarters, put a little mark there, little mark there, little mark there, little mark there. So you go, okay, they're quarters. Do it again. Okay, they're 1/8. And because you're wanting it right at the bottom, you've actually got to bisect the bottom to 1/8, so that your 1/8, so you've cut it into quarters, you cut it into 1/8, and then you bisect the bottom two, so that you're 1/8. And the really important thing about that is that the center of the pie slice is the center of the black circle. And then very carefully you carve that out using your knife. You can saw it out if you've got a little bushcraft saw, or you've got another safe little saw that you can take that out, because it is quite a delicate thing to do, and you've got to be quite precise. Now, I've done this on Olerua, which was the island I was on for 60 days, using a clamshell, and it took about 2 days. And So like, it is one of these things that there is no perfect way of doing it. And you know, just using a little bit of a shell, I was able to take out a pie slice like this. But I wouldn't do that today. I would look at other options because it's just too much time spent taking a slice out. So I would be looking at a bow drill set which didn't need a pie slice. But this conventional one does, and for the purposes of this session, I don't want to overcomplicate this. So the other things just to note before we start, I've got a little ember pan here, which could be a dry leaf, bit of cardboard, whatever. Your bearing block is the bit that your top of your drill sits in. So conventionally, that's another piece of wood, traditionally a harder wood than the drill itself. And it just, again, in the same way as I seated the drill on the hearth board, you just again have to use your knife and take out a little hollow so that it sits nicely on top. Or if you prefer, like I do, I just use a seashell, and they're inherently really smooth, and it tends to wear down the top of the drill less, but they're quite good conductors, and it gets really hot. So I've just got a little circle of leather that I always use and put it on the top for demonstrations at the scouts and stuff like that. Put that on the top, and then that is what I call a bearing block, okay? So you need those two items. So you've got your bow, your hearth board, your drill, your bearing block, your ember pan, which is just a little bit of material for holding the ember, and then your tinder bundle. And I've briefly explained this, but the really important thing is that your grass is super dry. If there's any green in there at all, take it out, because you've got a really delicate ember that you're going to try and convert into flames. And if it's really, for example, you might have really dry straw, but straw is quite thick and chunky, and you want to have fine materials. So this is hay, and I've even taken the little bit in the middle, and I've worked it between my palms until it's almost dusty. And that's quite important, because you want to increase the surface area of it as much as possible, so that when you do put an ember into it, it will burst into flames. And you can make it a sort of nest shape. This one is actually quite flat. And when I put my ember in, let me put something else in, put this little match in, I'm making it fairly flat. Then I'm pressing down, almost making a channel with my thumbs so it bends up, and then I'm pushing it together like that. So essentially the ember's right in the middle, and then you blow like this, and then you blow consistently, okay? You're gonna go blow really lightly and consistency. Take a big breath and then go again. I'm explaining this now because when I do this for real, and I am gonna do this even though I'm outside, because I've got a nice safety bucket of water which is just gonna go straight into, and I've got stone floors and no flammable furnishings here at all. But I would advocate, do not do this indoors. This is only for demonstration purposes, and only because it's raining outside at the moment. Okay. So we are now ready, I think, to start. I'm going to do a few shout outs and answer any questions that have come in the meantime. Why not add a little tinder on the hearth board? There is really no need to. I often wonder why people would ever do that. I mean, basically, you're trying to create an ember, and the ember is going to, once it's coalesced, it's going to be quite a stable structure, and you can actually leave it. You don't have to rush this thing. When you've got an ember and you tease away the hearth board, which I'll show you in a minute, it's going to stay alight for quite a long time, maybe 3 minutes. And actually it builds and it becomes stronger as you leave it a little bit. Certainly I wouldn't rush it and under a minute and transfer it into the tinder bundle. But there is no requirement for tinder, because you're not turning it into flames in the hearth board. You're actually transferring it to the tinder bundle, and then it only turns into flames in your hand, okay? So that's the reason we don't put tinder on the hearth board. 3-year-old daughter Eloise is watching to recover from her vaccinations this morning. Hi Eloise, this might be a bit advanced for you, I'm afraid. Love the necker there, Ed. Is it yours from Bastion in Oxfordshire? Yes, of course it is. Yes, that's mine. Good morning. Always wanted to know about this. Excellent. This is a great lesson, Ed. Thank you, Nick. Hi, Ed from Taiwan. Watching now with my colleague. Love your lessons. Thank you. Hello to everyone in Taiwan. Oh, it's bonkers, isn't it? Sycamore. What are you using today? And the Ruddler has answered it. Thank you very much. That was from Mega Jazz. Hi again from Japan. Exploring with Macca. Can you establish a link to your rainforest equipment, please? The main place which I've listed all of the equipment that I took into the Amazon is in the back of my book, Walking the Amazon. I don't think it sits anywhere else at all. If I get time in this crazy world, I will upload it to a blog or something like that. But at the moment, that's where it sits. Maybe you can borrow an old copy of somebody. Peter Ward says hello again from Primrose, age 4 in Norfolk. Hi Primrose. Some tips on the hand drill would be awesome. I've got a feeling, I promised that, didn't know why, so I said that I might do it. I've got a feeling the hand drill might be a little bit advanced for the age group that we're doing, but by all means, throw your comments in here. Charlie would like to ask, when you take out 1/8 of a circle, does that just go from the edge or the center of the circle? Right, obviously didn't explain that well enough. Let's come super close to the camera, as close as we can. It goes to the center of the circle. So you've got your black circle there, and the 1/8 goes right into the center, and as close to the center as possible. If it's not bang on in the center, then you will either have more or less black exposed, and that will mean that you've either got too much friction or too little friction. And if that gap's not wide enough, it's not quite an 1/8 of a circle, the powder's not going to fall down it. And if it's too wide, the powder's just going to fall down, but it's going to disperse too much and it's not going to build up. So 1/8 of a circle is really quite important. If you haven't got a knife, and this is just for information only, I mean, I have in the past used a very sharp sort of arete shaped rock and just abraded it backwards and forwards until I got the right shape. But for the purposes of learning, 1/8 of a circle and right to the center of your burnt in seat for the drill. All right, shall we have a go at this now? Lee Mather saying, watching with Evie and Bella, loving the session, said, thank you very much. Caroline Clark says, we'll be having a go this afternoon, fingers crossed it works. Nor, love from Holland. Shout out for first, Witchwoods. NW Primate creates notches. NW Primate creates notches, pie slices using the bow drill to drill in the side. Have you tried this and what do you think of it? No, I haven't, Michael. Never tried that. Using a drill to drill in from the side. Sounds, yeah, I mean, eminently doable. I think you have to think outside the box. If you don't have a knife and you're thinking of alternative ways, but I would say if you're trying to create an ember notch and you don't have a knife, that abrading method that I said, where you're literally finding something as sharp as possible and making sure it's solid, ideally it's a big rock and it's stuck in the ground and it's going nowhere, and then drawing it backwards and forwards. I think abrading is often a really good solution to overcutting if you don't have a knife. And I've done 180 days of survival without a knife now in the field. A lot of the stuff I do now is with a knife, but you know, having that grounding, having done so much, you know, 180 days, it's about half a year, isn't it? 6 months or so of cumulative time of being, you know, naked without a knife, without food, without anything in the world. And so it is, you do work out how to adapt and how to come up with solutions which aren't necessarily textbook, because most of the textbooks on bushcraft uses a knife. There's very few that use primitive tools out there. Okay, last few shout outs before I'm going to do a little demonstration. Which hardness of the wood are the drill and the hearth, soft one or hard? It's about medium, so you're not talking super hardwoods, you're not talking your oaks and your beeches. Well, you can. Sycamore is about halfway, ivy similar, lime also good. As I said before, I work off properties. If you can get your thumbnail into it, leave an indentation, that's perfect. If you can't, too hard. If it all comes away, too rotten, too punky, as we call it. And again, things like driftwood are often really good. I've spent a lot of time in maritime environments now, and driftwood, when it comes in off the beach, you can't tell what wood it is. And again, you're working at the properties. And I think in a world where it seems quite intimidating learning all the different species of trees, when you're just like, there's so much to learn, having a little simple trick like that with your thumbnail demystifies it again. It's like, okay, it's all right. It just needs to be dry, and I need those properties in the wood in order for this to work. Okay. Hi to Kev, our fab bushcraft man. That's from Mama Hutter. Amy and Joel from Ebse are loving it. That's from Esna Clan. We'll come back next week. Lovely. Okay, right. So let's we are now 1:30, and so I'm literally just going to do a demonstration here, and this time, unlike last week, I'm going to blow it into flames, and hopefully this has given you a little bit of an idea as to how to do it. Not going to use that one. And although it's not an interactive lesson, I hope you appreciate that it's quite a tricky thing to interactively to do a bow drill, but it was requested, and I think it's an interesting thing, and I do want to demystify it because it's not unachievable. And I think for parents, getting your head around it is the first thing. Obviously, going, okay, I could do this. That's just a bit of wood from the woods. That's just a bit of paracord or shoelace. That's just a bit of hay or dry grass. Yeah, there's no reason why I can't do that. And then once you've got it, obviously you can then pass it on to your kids. I think it would be a difficult thing for a kid to take and just start doing from scratch. But if you all work together, again, it's a lovely little project to do as a family, isn't it? Okay, so I've got my bearing block. I'm actually going to take a little bit more off the top of that because it's flattened a little bit. Got my ember pan underneath there. This bit of wood is actually off Olarua. It's got so much sentimental value, I don't know why I keep using it. Okay, so the ember pan, I'm just sliding slightly right underneath the ember notch, like that. And I've got my foot placed so that the instep is very close actually to where the drill is going to be seated, just there. Okay, and so my left foot is forward, my left foot is on the hearth board. In my right hand, I'm going to have in my left hand, I'm going to have the bearing block. But before I do that, pick it up, I'm going to seat the drill into the cordage. So what I do, the working end, the hot end, I put in the base of my hand, and then I lay the drill on top of the cord, and then I just put one turn in like that. Okay, so do that again. You've got the hot end in the palm of your hand, and then you just put it onto the string and do one turn. Okay, and that's now seated. Okay, remember that we've got a sort of triangular setup of foot and knee, so that if we're in a straight line, we'd be wobbling and we wouldn't be stable at all. But you want to make sure this knee's not getting in the way. Often you see it so that people are banging onto their rear knee. That doesn't want to be the case at all. And then pick up my bearing block using my left hand, and we seat the drill. We put the bearing block on top, and again, I'm just going to stress the reason this drill doesn't wobble about all over the place, and you see beginners with it wobbling around all over the place, it's because it can't. This left hand has got a brace against my shin and against my knee all the way up to mid bicep, and that's an incredible amount of contact. And then you can alter the pressure that you're doing just by leaning backwards or forwards. And then the important thing is the bow should travel as if it's on rails, horizontal ideally. Shouldn't come up in a big sweeping arc. If it does that, you'll find that it starts raising up the drill. Ideally, if it's going to go anyway, you want it pointing slightly down. So let's just start drilling now. And you can see how I'm not hitting my rear leg. I'm just going to start nice and easy. I'm just going backwards and forwards. And we're starting to see a little bit of smoke there. You can see the tip of the bow sometimes touches the floor. I think I've got an ember, so I'm just going to do 10 good strokes. Yeah, a huge ember actually. So, put this to the side, and as I said, there's no rush at this stage. We do want to take our Tinder bundle though, and make sure that's nice and prepared. I'm going to take my knife, I'm just going to gently put it over the ember and roll the hearth board away, because you don't want that either. A little bit out of breath now. And then I think it's worth, again, demonstrating that you don't have to rush this, showing you that ember. And that continuous plume of smoke means that you have indeed got an ember, and you'll be able to see it glowing as well. it's quite vulnerable doing this sort of demonstration live, because you're just like praying it's going to work, because it doesn't always. Let's face it. I'm going to tip that ember into my tinder bundle. I'm then going to pinch with my thumbs. I want the ember to be right in the middle, and I lift it up and I'm going to blow. And you can see, there we have it. We have made fire just using 2 sticks. That's going to go straight in my bucket of water. Do not do that indoors, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, do not do that indoors. I'm only doing that for the demonstration of the actual bow drill. But that is how to use, it's extraordinary, isn't it? You know, using 2 sticks, you're just rubbing them together. You see, it didn't take very long. When did I start doing that demonstration? Only just gone 1/2 and it's like 10:36 now. It's preparation in all cases. The times it doesn't work for me is when I've rushed it. And for example, my tinder bundle has got live grass in it, or I've not made sure it's super dry. If you've got any patches of sunlight, even if you're under the forest canopy, put your tinder bundle in the patches of sunlight to make it dry out. Make sure that your bow, and obviously these materials are sourced well, but you know, it's just taking the time, having the degree of presence, having the calmness, which often, let's face it, you don't have if it really matters, or if you're live on YouTube. But it's worth it. Composure is everything, I think. Mindset is everything. Let's have a look at a final few comments and then we're going to sign out. Coasters Bushcraft says, "Hi Ran." That's obviously to my little boy, I think. That must be my wife on the other computer. We've got a hello from Jakarta, Indonesia. Hello to everyone in Indonesia. I hope you're having an okay evening, probably, over there. Does the knee have to be in this position or any other? It may be a bit difficult to people with knee problems. There is no prescription. I've done this with... I've set it up for a bow drill, but I've done this with a huge drill under my armpit. It's called a sort of crutch drill, I think. You can adapt this for all sorts of sizes or whatever, and basically, if you can't kneel down, as I said, I've done this with a drill. It was a really fat drill and a big bow, and I've done it, and the pressure has been my armpit down to the floor, and it feels really weird, but there's no right or wrong. You can do a drill. Again, I've done this in a cave. Where was it? In India, I think. Done it in a cave, and there wasn't the height to kneel up, and yet it was hoofing it down with rain. It was a monsoon Himalayas. You couldn't do anything outdoors, so I had to do it in the cave. And so I used my teeth as a bearing block, which is an old Arctic method, and I just pushed down with my teeth like this and had a little bow and got an ember. So there is no right and wrong. If you've got dodgy knees, you've got no excuse. Just use your initiative and come up with different methods. And all you've got to do is spin that drill in place and do it hard, firm enough and for long enough, and you'll get an ember. Brilliant first try from Amy. Nice one. Kai says amazing. Snappy Twigs Forest School says great stuff, I think. Great job. There she blows. Wow, that was quick. Happy days. Oh, well then, Sarah. Do you blow straight to the ember? Yeah, you do. So when you've got your tinder bundle in your hand, I couldn't really talk while I was doing this, but you're trying to do a long, constant blow with as short a time between breaths as possible. So you go, quick gasp, and then black, and you're, the reason it's above, just always seems to work better above. And obviously, if it's windy outside, don't do it with the wind blowing this way and you get all the smoke in your face, which I've done many a time. Do it with the with the smoke going away from you, obviously. Parry Ram says, every time I see this, it never ceases to amaze me. It is achievable. I would just want to point that out. That's why the lessons are here. We're demystifying this. And, It's not just demystifying it so you can become a bushcraft geek, it's demystifying it so that you've got the skills that you can go confidently into the outdoors, still lose your lighter, still get your matches wet, and you've got the ability to use the materials around you to make fire, which could warm you at night, it could cook your food, it could boil your water, you know, it's just liberating, it really is, and I can't stress how exciting I think that is. That's quite a nice comment. I'm going to miss out the expletive. Stafford, you, something legend, brave to do it on the live. Thanks, Ed. I've watched so many times. You've highlighted tips and tricks I've not seen before. Always learning, top man. Oh, thank you, Seb. Wow, Arctic teeth. Is that how you lost your tooth? No, that was disappointingly unexciting. That was wicket keeping. I stood too close to the wickets and lost that tooth. Which is a good party trick. Thanks for the lesson, Ed. Scary doing that with your teeth. What if it goes up quick? Remember, it's never going to burst into flames in the hearth board. You're just creating an ember. There's processes, there's different stages, isn't there? It has to then be transferred into a tinder bundle to burst in flames. It's never going to burst into flames in your hearth board. Another excellent lesson, Ed. We used it to draw around the edge of your knife to get the eighth. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, okay. The tip of your knife is often the eighth of a circle, so that's a nice little tip if you're not bisecting multiple angles. So the way I was teaching it before is bisect. Say my head is the seat of the ember pan, is the seat of the drill. You bisect it that way, then you have to bisect it that way. But then because you've got 2/8 at the bottom that neither one of them is in the circle, you then have to actually bisect those eighths. So you're making 16ths, I suppose, down there, but add the bottom two together and you've got an eighth. But alternatively, if that's too complicated, well, it's maths as well. It's homeschooling, isn't it? Then use the tip of your bushcraft knife because they are often an eighth of a circle. Nice one. Who was it who said that tip? Because that's great. Goldie Bikes. Loving it from George and Mark in Lincolnshire. Great addition to the lesson. Thank you, guys. Ali Taylor. Isabel and Harry saying hi again. We love doing these forest skills with our daddy. Nice one. Fingers crossed you can go outside and have a practice at this. Weight Loss Panda saying thank you Weight Loss for tuning in again. Haha. Instant hobo look without a tooth. Love you, Ed. Blah blah blah. Thank you, guys. That was you know, nerve-wracking. Got to be honest. It's never easy doing stuff like that live because it can always go wrong. Stress a million times. You're watching this video of me doing this inside, but I'm in a basement with stone walls here, brick floor, nothing flammable about me, and a big bucket of water there, and I'm only doing it inside for demonstration purposes. I would never normally do this inside, but when I set this lesson up, it was raining. It's actually glorious sunshine outside now. So get outside, have a practice, find the materials, take your time. If it takes all day just to make a drill, then maybe that's the thing that you do today, and maybe tomorrow you make a bow, and tomorrow, the day after, you make a half board. But I tell you what, whatever we do next week, I will put aside some time at the end of the fire lesson to see how people's bow drill sets are going, and maybe we can have a little bit of a recap and questions and anything that went wrong, for example, in trying to put all this together. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. This is now Friday, so Monday it is back to Stephen again, and Stephen will be doing some more cooking outside over the fire, some top tips, and I'm hoping that he does a beer bread, because he does an amazing beer bread where the alcohol disappears. Don't worry, it's not going to get your children drunk, but it just tastes phenomenal. I do not know what he's teaching, but tune in Monday at 10 o'clock to see Stephen around a campfire making something utterly delicious. He's a good cook. Thank you again for watching, guys, and I hope your lockdown is going okay, and that fingers crossed we'll all get out of this soon, and fingers crossed this just gives you some little tips and tricks, and also just inspiration for going out today and doing something different outside, because you've got to go and find bits of wood that are appropriate to make a kit like this. Cheers, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.